Hello and welcome to another Frenchman Learns About Japan reaction stream where we check out videos relating to Japan. And today it's the anime offshoot or branch or whatever you want to call it. And yeah, like we had done last time, we're gonna watch more videos by Mother's Basement. The first one is about Parasites eating your hobbies alive. Looks like it's about Logan Paul. Next is the Nobody's Done It Worse, which I'm guessing is about like some bad director or something. And next is the worst anime of all time. And maybe we'll watch more from this list. We'll see. It always depends on how much I yap in between. But yeah, link for all the videos in the description. Timestamps if you're watching the VOD. Link to my Discord if you want to follow me. My stream amount, Patreon if you want to support me. Request reaction. Also, you can totally suggest anime videos or anime channels for me to check out. And if I'm interested, I'll definitely add them to the top playlist. Don't hesitate. Yeah, all I can say. The Parasite video we was supposed to watch last time, but again, last time I talked so much more, so I kind of, skipped it, but we'll watch it today. Yeah. I'm guessing again it's as simple as like Logan Paul doing some bullshit, scalping and stuff like that. Let's find out about it. Anyway, short intro, but you guys know I like to get into it. I'm not one for super long intros. Parasites are eating your hobbies alive. If it loads.
On April 21st, 2026, professional dead body filmer Logan Paul and Monsuno co-creator Jeremy Padawer made waves on anime Twitter when they announced that they had just co-purchased the, quote, greatest mangas in the world, the second highest grade One Piece #1, and the highest grade in existence of Dragon Ball
Wait, so it's just a copy of Jump?
#1 for a record $550,000. First appearance of Goku and Bulma, which isn't even true. Toriyama teased Goku at the end of Dr. Slump. Also, even if it was, it wouldn't be special because most chapter 1s are the first appearance of the main character of the manga. That's just how manga works. And it's not fucking Dragon Ball #1. It's Shonen Jump 1984 number 50.
Yeah, obviously it's Jump. It also, it's people who, the type of YouTuber who come into a hobby, for example, like manga, and, they do a lot of bad stuff, like, like, for example, a good example is like Pokemon, about the Pokemon scalper, right? The people who buy a ton of stuff, so the kids can't get any, and their goal is to, like, open them all and find the expensive card to resell it even higher, It's kind of stuff like that, That's what people call parasite, I guess.
I'm falling into his trap again already. So immediately anime Twitter jumped Paul's ass, pointing out all those errors in his tweet and then some. I myself chose to focus on mangas.
It's like one of my Japanese animes.
If you zoom in on the grading slabs, there's some really funny nonsense on there too. Like they just listed 2 random mangakas names out of the 14 or so who also...
Tenbaya in Japanese? Yeah, actually, so wasn't there like in Japan some drama like that recently? I think it was something with Jump and maybe some kind of card that you got at the store or something, but it caused a lot of problem, I think.
Had a chapter in each of those issues. It's just so obvious that Beckett copy-pasted their template for grading American comics with zero regard for how it might make sense in the context of manga.
I mean, I really don't care that much. Like, us normal people, we don't really care about having, the 500,000 first copy of Shonen Jump.
Kind of like how it's stupid obvious that Paul could not give a single solitary PSA 7 too much corn shit about the series that he's flexing with.
I'm literally I'm getting goosebumps thinking about what anime means to me.
Luffy D Monkey, shout out Luffy.
Monkey D Luffy.
What?
Monkey D Luffy.
Even the fucking cameraman can tell. But the thing about tricks is, when the magician's up is that obvious. It's usually because he wants you looking at that instead of what's in his other hand. As fun as it feels to mock him for his obvious LARPing or watch one of his fellow WWE superstars subject him to one of the most brutal ratios in Twitter history, you need to understand Logan Paul does...
if they bought all Mario and Pokemon game and don't choose them, they would be rich now.
Doesn't care if you think he's a real One Piece fan. Just like he doesn't care about the sanctity of human life or literally any of the thousands of his own fans who he's robbed.
Yeah, so I'm kind of hoping that this video is not just about him. Like, it's more about the overall subject, because I've seen enough video about Logan Paul and it's literally always the same to this day, right? No matter how many people he scam, people still keep giving him money.
Blind with his multiple well-documented crypto scams and rug pulls. The only thing he cares about is making money. And that is what makes him more of a threat to our hobby and community than any tourist who's ever subjected you to their bad opinions about anime boobs or whatever. The dude can't even come back to Japan as a tourist, and frankly, he'd be happy to see you call him one, because any publicity is good publicity when you're running an ad campaign, and because it stops you from recognizing that he's something much worse. An overseas landlord. Someone without even a passing vacationer's interest in the culture he's invading, whose sole goal is to make a quick buck by making life less pleasant and more expensive for all the locals. And we know that because this ain't his first investment round. On July 22nd, 2021, Logan Paul made waves across the internet when he announced his acquisition of the, quote, greatest collectible in the world, a PSA 10 Pikachu Illustrator Pokemon card for a record $5.2.
It's a cute card, huh? Okay.
$275 million, a staggering jump from the previous documented price of $300,000 to $400,000 for every PSA 9 one that had been previously sold, except the one PSA 9 that he bought a month before for over $1 million. This was the culmination of months spent streaming expensive, high-profile Pokemon pack and box openings on the Impulsive podcast channel, the event that cemented PSA as the go-to grading house for Pokemon cards, and a watershed moment for the entire Pokemon TCG community in kind of the same way that a tsunami or a dam breaking is a watershed. Prices for rare cards and sealed product.
I mean, I'm sure you know, well, I don't really follow it. Logan Paul is far from the only problem with the whole Pokemon thing. Again, for like 10 years now, it's been in the news how much scalpers are like buying ton of pack and little kids can't even get Pokemon card. It's been like a problem for 10 years, yeah. More expensive than diamond per 1 gram. It might be at this point, yeah. It might be. That's crazy. 5 million for a card. Like, I'm trying to think what is the stupidest thing I've spent my money on in terms of like what is actually worth to the amount of money I spent on it. One time I was buying like I'm really a fan of Lodos, classic anime manga light novel series, and I bought on like a second-hand store in France like a box that had a bunch of like the different series, you know, like manga, VHS, light novel, and also like an autographed version of the VHS by like the original artist of the light novel, and I bought that for a little bit more expensive than normal, because they convinced me, you know, like this is worth the maybe 30 or 50 euro more I paid for it. But then obviously I got it, and you know, when I was really happy with like the actual DVD and Blu-ray and all that, I was looking at like the VHS, which like basically you open, and inside with like probably some like marker, there's just like a signature, and I was like, this was not worth like the 50 euro I spent on it.
Old and new, which had already been creeping up due to pandemic pressures, exploded exponentially in a matter of months, with chase cards of all types rapidly escaping the reach of all but the most affluent fans and the most shameless clowns.
No! You just take it from my cart?
Oh, why? Get the hell out of here. Run!
The guy is
You've
smiling.
seen these creatures, no doubt, in TikToks, shorts, and cringe compilations, snatching new boxes and blisters off the shelf as fast as the Walmart associate can set them down before gleefully shoving their overflowing carts past the despondent faces of poor, Pokemon-less children who arrived 5 seconds too late for the feeding frenzy. They've been the laughing stock of the internet and a bane on the existence of every honest Pikachu enjoyer for the last half-decade, and that is what Logan Paul is trying to bring to your local manga aisles and anime conventions.
Yeah, I see the point. I see the point.
I mean, more of them than you already see at anime conventions and now at the booths that you actually want to visit. This much, many of you already know. But what you might not know is that what Logan Paul did to Pokemon and what he's doing to manga now was no accident. It was a calculated, coordinated plan involving multiple high-income investors to manipulate the Pokemon collectibles market for personal gain. And the exact same guy who coordinated it with him then is behind this move into manga now. Before we get to him though, I owe my wife, Yazzie, a huge thanks for making this video possible by telling me everything I didn't know about the Pokemon TCG side of this story. Because she was there in the trenches, cracking Evolving Skies, Chillin' Rain, and Viv.
It was real. Hobbies stream, it's your time. I mean, do you know anything about Logan Paul scamming Pokemon card and anime magazine?
Vivid voltage as the whole hobby collapsed around her, and now she has a new hobby, Oshikatsu, the art of outwardly celebrating one's favorite things, which is kind of like the opposite of slabbing. And recently, with a bit of help from our buddy Liam Rising Superstream, she got the chance to partner with Rio Rare, Japan's premier
fantastic sponsor.
Convinced him to start streaming box openings.
The front line of that.
In 2020, and the man with the connections that let him.
They go in France to buy many things and sell it. In Japan, tickets are only illegal, and McDonald's Chicago Hobbies were crazily sold in flea market sites. Yeah. I mean, reselling depends, right? I mean, it's really like, you know, for tickets, I don't really know. Again, like, I'm not someone who goes to convention or concerts, so I can't tell you. And as far as the Pokemon situation, I don't know if it was like the same in France, where people would fight to scalp as much as possible. Frankly, I'm not sure. Yeah, I am not sure. He tried doing the same thing to Yu-Gi-Oh! Failed to research the fact beforehand that Yu-Gi-Oh! Players don't give a shit about cards unless it's meta. Fair enough.
By the PSA 10 illustrator from that anonymous collector in Dubai is the very same man who just went in with him on those slabbed up shonen jumps. Monsuno co-creator Jeremy Padawer.
What's Monsuno?
This is the first ever Weekly Shonen Jump from 1968. Weekly Shonen Jump allows the publisher to do is introduce a bunch of new brands, a bunch of new pieces of content. Naruto, One Piece, and Dragon Ball all started here. This is like the grandparent of them all. Potential $1 million publication down the road.
There's more to Jeremy than just creating a late-to-the-party Pokemon knockoff no one remembers for Nickelodeon, though. As the CBO of Jazzwares and
Well, so he made an anime, basically. Like a bad anime.
former CEO of Wicked Cool Toys, he's actually managed the global license for real Pokemon toys for nearly a decade at this point. And before that, he was handling Jakks Pacific's line of Pokemon toys, among many other brands. But before he did any of that, way back in the year 2000, Jeremy made out like a bandit in the .com boom, as the culmination of a website-building law school side hustle built on the innovation of spelling the first word of domains with 2 A's so they'd come up first in search engines. But what did those websites actually do, you ask? Why, they were secondary marketplaces for hot collectibles of the
Jazzwares and Jakks. Respect these manufacturers. Oof.
time, like AbsoluteFurbies.com and AbsoluteBeanieBabies.com. It's often said, because it's true, that the only people making real money in a gold rush are the folks selling shovels, and Jeremy Padawer has been in the shovel business for 30 years, during which he's befriended quite a few of his fellow shovel merchants and gold mine owners, who all like to take turns selling their biggest nuggets back and forth to each other for increased embarrassingly large prices. But while that can be a decent, even fun way to store money, it's far from the best way to make it with your collectibles. For guys like this, the real grail isn't any of the rare or one-of-a-kind collectibles that they hoard and trade around to store their wealth. It's a very specific scenario. A chance for them and all their buddies to get in on the ground floor of a mass market gold rush for more common collectibles like Beanie Babies or comic books, where they can buy up stock before the plebs even come down with gold fever.
Yeah, so they manufacture the gold rush. So again, they're like ahead of the game. It's really something crazy to think about, but if you're already rich, you can do it. You can make yourself richer by making things happen in advance, yeah.
And make out like bandits. All because they predicted, or better yet, created the craze. And that is exactly what Jeremy Padawer had been trying to do with Pokemon for years before he met Logan Paul.
What's going to make this set into $1 million set 10 years from now is not the fact that the Charizard card, which I'll show you, is 50 grand. It's the fact that the Pikachu is $400.
That was Jeremy talking to sports card collector Buster Share way back in 2019.
Making rare card more common to combat scalper, but it didn't help the market from proliferating. All malls have stopped stocking Pokemon just because they can't be bothered to deal with scalper. I mean, frankly, yeah, what even is the solution to scalpers? I mean, some people will say, like, just produce more stuff, but it doesn't always seem to be a solution. I mean, it depends on the situation, right? Like, for example, like, with the PlayStation situation, yeah, literally, like, produce more of them because there isn't a different rarity between the PlayStations, so, like, it's a different thing, but the point is scalper is in this kind of thing, where the thing in the first place is some kind of gambling about, like, you know, getting more expensive card or not, so how do you even solve it? You can't. Yeah. Still carries them as them locked inside of a case. Fair enough.
Trying to convince him that Red Cheek's Pikachu was the Pokemon equivalent of an OG Michael Jordan card. And he actually does, man.
Limited purchase. Screw over collectors. Pre-opening packs. When you buy them to immediately ruin resale value. I mean, I guess that sounds fine for, like, the normal person. Yeah, I guess this is fine for the normal person. Just open the pack in advance, yeah.
Make some pretty salient points in the interview, as you would expect from the manager of the global Pokemon toy license since 2018, and a guy who had been working with the Pokemon market before that. He had some very unique and powerful insights into the buying habits of fans that let him see a market primed to explode. But to actually press the detonator, he needed help. He needed Logan Paul.
For about 6 years, Logan and I have been friends. We became friends around COVID. A little earlier, actually. And, dude, he reached out to me and he was like, Jeremy, I want to learn more about collecting.
And to understand why
Pokemon should print rare card and sell it 1 million yen so they become rich.
You first have to understand the
Collectors don't care as long as it looks presentable. And players will generally play anything as long as it isn't chewed up and waterlogged.
incredible economic magic trick known as speculation. If you understand the basic principle of supply and demand, then you know there are two ways to raise the price of a thing. Either suppress the available supply, which is generally pretty difficult and expensive, or use cheap and easy advertising to convince more people they want the thing. Of course, that generally depends on what the thing can actually do for them, but one thing that basically anything can do under the right conditions is be sold for more money than you paid for it. Those conditions naturally require demand for the thing to increase after you've bought it, which seems like kind of an advertising catch-22. But here's where that gets interesting.
It's illustration everywhere, yeah. I mean, yeah, Nintendo comes up with it. Like, obviously this card is more rare. You know, I don't know if like there's a logic on what character they pick or something, but I definitely you know, the whole thing of speculation is always very weird, right? Like when you think about it, it's still like the same kind of like little card, you know, like in reality it's worth like, you know, 50 cents, but obviously some of them end up with speculation being worth like 100,000 or something. And obviously like it's all a human construct, right? I mean, it's all like the capitalist market and, you know, just, you know, us being kind of insane, right? Like if we stop for a second to think about it, like, you know, any of us who spend like even like $100 on like a single card is kind of insane, you know. Even if you say it's for collecting and it makes you happy, we are kind of insane. I mean, you know, I have been insane buying some stuff for my anime and manga collection, you know. You know, like there's no real logic to it. I mean, it is definitely stupid and insane, right? They're like piece of paper and cardboard, and some people buy them for like $5 million. It is insane. It's slowly becoming a saying that a collection space to buy 3 copies. One to open, one in case the file gets broken, the first get broken, and a third to resell. Actively against still collectible culture. Applying this by custom painting your Transformers. That's cool. Yeah. I don't know, like, if I was rich, I won't lie, you know, trying to get like really rare stuff, I might do that, you know. For example, like some storyboard of some anime, some like rough draft of mangaka, you know, before starting the legendary series, you know. And obviously, like once you have that, you kind of want to preserve it. But I don't know if I would want like some party thing to like appraise it and tell me this is worth like this amount of money. I wouldn't want that, you know. Like I'd be happy to have something that I realize is like, you know, invaluable in a sense, at least as a fan. But I don't want you to tell me it's $3 million, it's $5 million, because it feels stupid. Like you can't determine that. Yeah. Server because the original looks so chopped.
The mere idea that there could be more demand for a thing later can create demand for it now. If you can convince, say, a rich and famous YouTuber to tell all of his followers, I'm buying this thing for lots of money because I think it'll make me even more money later, if even a fraction of those followers believe him, it magically makes the thing worth more money now. And the fact that it's already worth so much more now naturally indicates that it's gonna be worth even more later, which in turn means, of course, that it's worth even more now. And a thing worth that much now has gotta be worth tubs of money later. And hey, would you look at that? It's worth buckets now. This amazing trick works out great for everyone, except of course anyone who actually wants to own the thing.
Actually, now that I think about it, when I'm acting like a saint, one time when I was young and I would often go to like guide sell, someone was selling like this big box of Yu-Gi-Oh card, and I bought it for like 30 euro, I think, and then I spent like half a day on a site basically entering the code of the card to see if it was worth anything. And one of them was worth like €1 or something, but yeah, that was the time where I almost became like that. But then I spent like literally like 5 or 6 hours doing it, as there was like so many cards, and since, you know, none of them were worth anything, I just got bored and that was it. All Transformers are the opposite. Original from 84, the one from 2010 are like, yeah, fair enough.
For its intended purpose, like having manga to read or games to play or a house to live in. But who cares about them? You won't even be able to see those losers from where we're going on the f***ing moon!
Let's see. Where did you send them? Am I blind or... Oh, it's loading. Bad internet, huh? Fair enough. Wait, I think it's coming. Here we go. Before. Wait, what? Am I missing the difference? I'm literally like spot the differences, but I don't know if I see it. Blue, blue, red, red. Added more paint to the crown. The faceless chopped. Okay. Okay, I mean, obviously, you don't want to like fully repaint it. Okay. It's just a little bit, so, you know, you can't reset it.
Unless, of course, literally anything happens to make the thing worth less money now, which, per the mechanics I just described, is not good. Like, say, for instance, the makers of Beanie Babies or comic books notice a bunch of people buying up special editions and first issues at ridiculous prices, so they start making more of those things to collect some of that bag and end up flooding the market with them. To avoid that sort of thing and make it all the way to the moon, you need a way to manipulate not just the demand side of the market, but the supply. A way to manufacture scarcity. Or, better yet, the perception of scarcity, since, again, buying up enough stock to actually limit supplies is very expensive, whereas advertising and packaging are dirt cheap. If you can use those tools to denote a segment of the supply as being special in some way, and convince enough suckers that that specialness makes it more valuable, then you can sell them something as worthless as a JPEG of a monkey for millions of dollars. But how to do that when the JPEG is printed on cardstock? That's the question. And the answer is slabs. Trading card grading emerged as a practice and very fun phrase to say as an offshoot of the coin grading industry in the early 90s amid a rash of Ken Griffey Jr. rookie card counterfeiting. Hence why the first grading company was called
Flabbergasted months when 11 Pokemon packs were $10 each at a shop nowadays. How much did it used to be? I have no idea actually.
Professional Sports Authenticators, or PSA. Over the decade, with the rise of sites like eBay, PSA's forensic services became increasingly essential to sports card and TCG collectors, who in turn became increasingly obsessed with the idea of owning certified, perfectly centered and printed copies of their favorite and rarest cards. Though ultimately it would be PSA's competitor, Beckett Media, whose Black Label came to be seen as the true gold standard of perfection among those hardcore enthusiasts. That's the power of packaging. This was naturally true for Pokemon cards too, where among the hardest core of collectors, top-graded cards commanded top dollar. Though that was only ever really true for the rarest and most desirable chase cards from each set, the hollow foils and full arts. I mean, it cost $20 a pop, plus shipping and handling both ways just to get a card graded. Way more if you wanted to skip the line and get the highest end photo analysis done.
Actually, a couple months ago I finally tried a TCG card simulator, so I played quite a bit of that, just endlessly opening pack to try to get an expensive card to sell. It was kind of fun as a game, yeah. Making money was kind of fun, you know. I think I like making money. For context, the distance between a 9 and a 10 is a few $100 depending on the card.
No one was going to shell that out for a random 30-cent EX card. That would be stupid. But what if they did, though? What if you could convince the world at large that every random piece of Poke Pack filler could be turned into gold if only the mighty card alchemists proclaimed and preserved its perfection in the magic plastic? When Logan Paul made headlines with his PSA 10 illustrator, PSA became a household name overnight, irrevocably associated in the mind of the average Joe with the very idea that Pokemon cards could be worth big money at all. And to those Joes, the PSAs with the biggest numbers are naturally worth the biggest money across the board, regardless of their actual play or collecting value to anyone.
It's funny because, like, another little story, like, I remember when I was young, there was, every Wednesday in my small village, there was, like, a market, you know, they mostly sold vegetables, food, clothing. But there was one guy who sold, like, he had like a lot of Pokemon cards, Yu-Gi-Oh card, like Nintendo DS game and stuff like that. And I remember, like, the first time I saw him and I looked at the price in front of the card, he had like you know, he had rows of cards with a price in front, you know, like €1 the card, €2 the card. I don't think I really know about Pokemon or something, but my first thought like was what the fuck, because some cards were like sold for like €5 or something, and I was looking at it and I was like just shocked, right? Because it's a piece of plastic. You know, I was thinking of like in comparison to video game, right? Of course. And yeah, I kind of remember that now, yeah. And I remember that the guy, you know, had a reputation for being like a scammer, right? Even though by today's standards he was probably like a saint. That's something, yeah. Slab but slab, different things. It onto the play side of the hobby, alongside the collecting side. Yeah. I think, you know, while today, you know, since I have no money, I don't do it anymore. When I used to, you know, have money and buy anime and manga stuff, I got lucky that I managed to get into the mindset of like, you know, if I'm fine with buying secondhand, I can get a lot more than otherwise. So I would always go to garage sale and, you know, like for €50, sometimes I had like many DVDs, like sometimes a ton of mangas, you know. But if I bought it like full price, I mean, I would have gotten like 2 DVDs or something. So yeah, I mean, you know, again, some people are happy with the hobby of collecting and doing all this bullshit. Some people do it just for the money. You do what you want. It does all seem very insane on the outside, but you know, I guess everybody does insane stuff. I mean, yeah, be it for food, for clothes, you know, it's all the same, right? I mean, you know, the guy who's cheating on someone for like buying expensive rare cards is the same guy who spent like €500 on like a pair of shoes or something. You know, we're all kind of fucked in the head in modern society. There isn't much to it, you know. Cards just go for a lot if they're shiny enough. Akihabara to buy a new waist Schwarz. Collab with Toho. There was a remote that was going for like 7,000 yen. More than glad to pick up a common Marisa for 100 yen. Yeah, fair enough.
Who's really in the hobby. I mean, sure, there might be several million VMAX Morpekos out there, but only 737 of those are PSA 10s. $75 please, Mr. eBay sir. Or if you get a PSA 9 back, you could maybe get $24.99 for it, which you'll know isn't even your grading and shipping costs back, let alone the actual price of the card. Funny how the collecting bros who encourage all the Walmart scalpers to go grade all their cards and video games and comics and everything else never mention that part, or the part where you could get back a super common grade that's worth less than the raw you sent in, which mathematically has to be what happens most of the time, because if the cards that are worth thousands of dollars,
I mean, this is gambling, right? Yeah, those people do it hoping that their card is gonna come back super expensive.
weren't exceedingly rare, they wouldn't be worth thousands of dollars, and per the mechanics of speculation, the possibility that any raw card could be gets baked into their pricing in the same way that sealed product that could have the big chase cards is almost always more expensive than what you actually find inside when you crack it. I digress though. Just as Walmarts and Targets across the nation were finding themselves infested with scalpers, grading companies suddenly had a new, much larger and less informed base of customers of their own, clogging up their order queues to the point that grading waits once counted in days or weeks were now measured in months, which in turn forced the more serious collectors with more serious collectors' items to pony up hundreds of dollars for the express line service. And despite the fact that those serious collectors still saw Beckett as the gold standard, it was PSA that ended up with the bulk of that business, in no small part thanks to Paul and pals constantly mentioning them in podcasts and interviews. Now, full disclosure, in all of the digging I've done, I can't find any evidence that PSA paid Logan or Jeremy for any of that publicity, so it is entirely possible it was all a happy accident for them, the happiest accident of their entire careers. But there are a lot of ways you could compensate someone without actually actually creating a paid promotion that would need to be disclosed, like free or discounted expedited grading, or even, you know, just fudging some numbers here and there. Many folks online have opined that in photos, Paul's illustrator looks a little off-center and nicked up for a 10. I mean, there are only 40 of those cards in the entire world in any condition, so it would be a huge statistical anomaly if even one of them actually was perfect. Certainly not impossible, and of course there's no way to check without seeing the card in person, which definitely is impossible, but, you know, something to think about, as is the fact that the controversies and scandals section of PSA's Wikipedia page is 4 times as long as their company history. Of course, it could also simply be that Paul, Padawer, and all of their pals saw the PSA brand as being undervalued, bought up a lot of cheaper relative to Beckett PSA 10 cards, and then started talking up things like PSA 10 Charizards and complete PSA 10 base sets as the grails of Pokemon in order to...
I mean, it's no doubt, again, like, this is all probably their strategy, just, you know, they're a piece of shit, but they're smart. Like, clearly, again, I mean, they don't even need to be smart, again. Like, I've seen enough videos by Logan Paul and the literal, like, 10,000 scam that he's done, you know, and that despite the fact that he's done so many that have been exposed to the max, every time it works, right? I mean, every time he does it again, he gets a shit ton of money from stupid fan, and you repeat. So, obviously I see what this video is going, right? Like, he's obviously talking about the Pokemon thing from before, and now it seems like he's getting into, like, anime manga stuff, maybe, which is probably gonna drive the same bullshit, but how do you even stop it? Like, this guy cannot be cancelled. I mean, you know, like, 10 years ago he filmed a fucking corpse in Japan, and, you know, since then he's been scamming people every fucking year, and yet he's still, like, making billions of millions every year, and every time he gets into something, it seems to work out. I mean, again, when you're rich, you just can't fail. I mean, it's not fully true, but you know what I mean? Like, he doesn't even need to be that smart or that careful, he just can't seem to fail. Yeah. Egotistical for it to matter at time. Try doing a podcast with Mr. Beast and KSI promoted that brand. Fair enough.
Inflate the value of their own collections. You know, as a little side benefit to Paul's main plan at the time of building hype for his then-in-development liquid marketplace scam. Carl Jobst made an excellent video about that a few months back, by the way, linked up in the corner, where he also showed a few other examples of how high-profile, record-setting collectible sales are almost always ads in disguise for something else, where the buyer intentionally overpays for an item in order to create hype around the idea that running your collection through whatever service they're trying to sell you can help make you rich. It's a real good way to sell shovels. Anyway, regardless of the reason, I doubt anyone at PSA was upset at the outcome of Paul and Padawer's promotion, which gave their business such a boost that by December 2025, their parent company, Collectors Holdings, was able to acquire Beckett outright, giving them control over 80% of the global card grading market. Antitrust laws? Never heard of them. And with that move, they also gained control over 100% of the global manga grading market, because exactly 1 year before...
Frankly, until this video, I mean, it kind of makes sense. I'm guessing there's something like that for everything. I didn't even know there was a manga grading market. You know, despite being so deep into all this, I never even thought about it. I mean, I don't know. It makes sense, but it must have been very niche until this bullshit.
Before collectors bought them out, Beckett announced that grading manga was a thing they were apparently gonna be doing now, despite literally nobody in the manga collecting community asking for it. And naturally, nobody went for it either. Right now, there's the...
I was gonna say, like, what do you even grade? Do you mean they just grade Jump, or... Like, is there a point in grading manga volume? I mean, I guess some of them will be rare, yeah? it's not much of a thing.
This dude on the manga rarity subreddit, which is tiny and only exists because r/manga collectors banned speculation, flexing that he's got the only graded Haikyuu #1. Not the only 9.6, the only one
Preservation quality.
in the world. Just keep that in mind whenever you hear top grade in the world, population 1. The distinction is meaningless unless you give it meaning. And there are two big problems that have stopped manga fans from giving manga grades any meaning at all over the last few years. Firstly, real manga collectors collect manga so they can read that manga.
I must confess to not being that person. Like, I probably had read physically only one of the manga that I bought, which was Berserk. The dozens of other manga I bought over the year were literally to collect because I was already a fan, because I had already read it online, basically. So, yeah, I bought them because I like them, not to read them. Yeah. Feels bad.
Rare manga is only valuable to us because it's out of print and thus harder to read. So the idea of turning one of those treasures into a glorified doorstop is an affront to anyone who actually...
But again, you might say the same about Pokemon card, right? I mean, in the end, Pokemon card are made to be played, and it is, you know, the same thing. It's kind of like, if you're genuinely into the thing, this is fucking stupid. Like, play your card, pull out your big dick, super cool, super rare card, and just slam it on the table and be like, I've got this, what can you do? You know, this is how it should be, not, you know, I've got this sick ass card and I'm just gonna put it into plastic and grade it and all that, you know?
Participates in the hobby. But the other bigger problem is the grades themselves are obviously complete bullshit. With coins and cards, there are clear manufacturing standards that individual items can be graded against, like how centered is the print.
Tulip bubble. I don't think I do. Let's look that up. Tulip bubble. The Tulip Mania. The period during the Dutch Golden Age when contract price for some bulb of the recently introduced and fashionable tulip reached extraordinary high level between 1634 and 1637. It was a speculative bubble. And it was the first recorded speculative bubble in history. So tulip of all things, a flower, and like, it doesn't even feel like, is tulip even that rare? Okay. Well, I learned something today, so this was the first of this kind of stability. Alright. Alright. Tulip, air, rice, another thing became bubble in history. Next maybe Pikachu. I think it's already been Pikachu.
How shiny is the metal? Are the ink layers all properly aligned? How much of the original stamp on the coin has eroded over time? But with a book? I mean, yeah, depending on the design, you might be able to judge how centered the cover is, but as soon as you look inside, the system falls apart. If you've ever flipped through a book before, you'll notice that the numbers in the corner move all over the place with every single page. That's because every one of them is printed and cut separately. So they will never be perfectly aligned when they're all bound together. It's mathematically impossible.
So then, like, I guess the only way they could grade them is literally just how in perfect shape the thing is. Like, there's no crooked corner, there's no, like, all the edges are perfectly even, I don't know.
before, the only thing graders can really grade beyond obvious wear and tear or factory damage is the whiteness of those not quite aligned pages. And if you look at this Shonen Jump that I grabbed from my local konbini last year, you'll notice none of the pages are white. The closest they get is off gray because they print this shit on the cheapest phone book grade recycled newsprint they can find to make print.
But like things are much better these days because obviously most manga are published online on manga app, and so the publisher scanned them on proper white paper. But when I first started reading manga online, like 10-15 years ago, right? There was less like online version of that, and so most of it was people scan of this kind of magazine. So I remember when most manga scan were pretty ugly because you had the redrawing to like translate to English, and the page were already like this kind of like ugly gray. It wasn't great. It wasn't great. Might even be screwed over by whoever was assigned to look at it that day. Of course, yeah.
At peak 6 million right now, like 2 million a week, remotely viable. Anyone who calls a given Shonen Jump white is lying to your face.
You have a Weekly Shonen Jump Dragon Ball 9-2 here with, look closely, exceptional white pages.
I mean, this is Dragon Ball though. For all I know, 40 years ago, maybe the magazine were in white. I have no idea. Yeah, that's a good question. Was Shonen Jump always grey, or did it used to be white?
Which I believe is one of the only Beckett exceptional white.
Yeah, of any comic.
Of any comic.
Of any manga.
Yeah, like look at the color of the pages.
Okay, very white, very white.
Of course, comic grading is still a thing in spite of similar objections in that space, but it's only really a thing with floppies there, so thankfully it doesn't have as negative an effect on comic readers as it could, because they can always just get the trade paperbacks instead. Those collected volumes you see in bookstores and whatnot tend to get larger, longer-lasting print runs than the floppies, so only an idiot would try to slab a trade, even a first printing, because everyone knows the real first print is the floppy. On that note, now feels like a good time to point out that Japanese-style trade paperbacks, or tankobons, are literally the only format that 99% of manga have ever been available in on the English market, and that's the shit Beckett is trying to convince comic speculators to slab up by using a Japanese word that they don't know what it means. But why would they do such a thing? The manga equivalent of floppies, zashi like Shonen Jump, pretty much only exist in Japanese outside a very brief stint in the 2000s where
One time actually, in France, it was like a very long time ago, maybe like 13 years ago, on TV I remember that like you could buy it in, the place where you buy magazine and smokes, right? Whatever it's called in English. And they had this kind of like new version of a print of One Piece, where rather than being like manga volume, it was basically in the form of like a jump volume, right? So it was like 200 pages or something, this really big size, and it was obviously the kind of like scam bullshit where like the first one they sell it for like €5, but then if you want to continue collecting it, every time it's like a bit more expensive until it's like a stupid price like 15 or 20 euro to just buy one of those. I think they also came with a poster, which if you look at my old room in the old videos, one of the big One Piece posters on my wall was from that. So that's the only time I had something that was like in a format of Jump, even though it was technically just like, a big part of his blue One Piece. It was interesting to have, yeah. That's a good question. I don't think so. I know that some country like China, for example, they have a version of Jump, right? But obviously, like they edit it by taking out some manga and and all that, right? So it's not the same. In France, it's possible that there was a Jump at the time, but I'm pretty sure there wouldn't be now because obviously, I think the problem with it is like in Japan it makes sense, but overseas most series don't get translated, right? Translation is a lot of work, so it just doesn't make sense for them to publish Jump. And I guess these days, because you have the app, the like you can look online or on your phone, they can select which jump manga to translate, and that makes a lot more sense because again, they can't really justify translating every manga when some of them are like not popular or something. Yeah, individual series, yeah. I wonder if like Jump was ever published in France. I mean, it's possible. In what countries is Shonen Jump published? Yeah, then they're listing like apps physically. Japan. I'm pretty sure I had seen one time, but again. Yeah, okay, so other countries, that's what I thought, they had some version, like Sweden, Norway, Germany, from like 2001 to 5, they had like a version of Shonen Jump, but it didn't last, yeah. I think these days, again, it makes even less sense. I mean, basically, you know, a lot of people read manga online, so you just make an app and you only translate the one that are popular, right? Because obviously, like, there's a lot of flop in Shonen Jump. At least of what, like, half of what is in Jump isn't really popular, and it just doesn't make sense, I guess, to translate it. Yeah.
Has tried to make English Jump and Shoujo Beat a thing. And while those are less common than tankobons and do have some nostalgia value for millennials like me, as translated reprints, they're still...
Actually, give me a second. Let me just look in my saying if I have anything. Shit, I found it. I was just talking about it and it was right here. For some reason there's some Berserk things tied to it. Damn. This thing is messed up. This came with like a volume of Berserk that I bought a long time ago. But yeah, this is what I was talking about. This thing. It is kind of like a Jump, I guess. It's like this big ass book, right? And yeah, they called it like the logs. It's 400 pages. And again, it was one of the scam things where, you know, again, on TV they advertise it as like, this is so cheap, you know, it's like €5, but then every new volume they keep increasing the price, and everybody knew it was kind of a scam, right? They did the same thing with like you know, model cars, sometimes it was knives, sometimes it was like insect collection, a lot of stupid stuff like that. Yeah, this one was only like €4, that's crazy. That was €4. I mean, this is like 15 years ago or something, just €4. And again, it's just like One Piece, basically. I mean, nothing crazy, right? It's just One Piece. And there was a poster that came with it. Oh, interesting. I just realized this, looking at this. I didn't even know, but they even gave you the actual, like, wrapping of the normal manga volume, right? Look at this. I guess they had to do something with it. It's kind of crazy. So they just sticked it in it. Man, I don't even remember this. It's been so long. Yeah, that's kind of cool actually. I think this is a poster that I never opened. Oh yeah, this is like a poster I never opened. You know, actually, this is kind of a crazy good thing for its price. I mean, at the time. Yeah. Can you read the commas in the right order naturally? So yeah, this is kind of like the only manga I have left because I sold all the other one, but this is cool. And yeah, the pages are definitely like grey. No doubt about this. Very grey. But it's cool though. Yeah. They even have like, yeah, this is cool. I don't know. Like normal manga are nice size, but it's kind of nice to have something this big. And they do have some color page. Like Buggy Introduction is a color page. So you know what? I'm kind of thinking this is insane for like what it is, right? This is 400 page. There's color page. There's a poster and all that, and this was only like €4 back then. Like, time has changed. I mean, a normal manga volume in France is like €7-8, I guess. So this is kind of crazy. Yeah. Though obviously I guess it feels a little bit cheaper than like, you know, having an actual like manga volume, right? It's still a bit cheaper, yeah. Anyway, good stuff.
Never gonna have the true first appearance provenance of an Action Comics #1 or Amazing Fantasy 15. There are some collectors of Kizashi or first chapters in the West, but it's always been a niche interest for us because we can't read them. We don't really have any nostalgic attachment to this format. The print quality sucks, and they just take up a lot of shelf space. So there was basically no way that...
Yeah, I mean, again, like, it's cool in concept, but I do prefer white page. I'm not saying this looks bad. I mean, you know, gray page don't look terrible, right? But I think you still prefer, like, you know, it's not only like the color of the page, but also like the texture. Like this is more like the texture of this one is more like, you know, the kind of like piece of paper that you have in art class, rather than like a quality manga book. Yeah. By Conan manga, because the Sakuga is the greatest of all. I mean, talking about Conan, I showed it before, but... where is it? I have like... I can't find it, but I have a book with illustration by Oyama Gosho. Okay, I don't know where I put it, but yeah, I've got this like how to draw manga book, and the cover of it is drawn by Oyama Gosho for some reason. Don't know why, because it doesn't really like teach you anything.
Beckett could ever sustain an English-facing business by only grading these. They needed to convince people to start slabbing tanks just to stay afloat, and not just the few genuinely special first print tankobons like Gold Text One Piece, all of them. Manga fans just weren't biting though, and any scalpers who might raid their local bookstores on Beckett's behalf were already busy shoving 8-year-olds into shelves at Walmart. But if Logan Paul could make hundreds of graded VMAX Morpekos happen by publicly overpaying for some cardboard, then maybe he can make graded tankobons happen by publicly overpaying for a book. If you watch the announcement video, they're not even subtle about what they're doing.
It's videos like these that are going to make people go searching for their addicts to see if they got better copies.
By the way, if you have a better copy, will you at least call us first?
Yeah, hit us up. We're buying.
Though do take note, because it'll help you understand other scams in the future, of how they cloak the blatant sales pitch for grading in an even more blatant pitch of, hey, hit us up, we're buying. They know their target audience.
Frankly, it's most artists. This week I started rewatching a show called Naoki Urasawa no Manben, the author of Monster, basically doing interview with many manga artists, and they also like record a day of working and drawing. And in a lot of this interview, they kind of talk about how, like, the evolution of the art, which can be very extreme, like many authors, right? And it's really interesting. Yeah, most artists change. Sometimes it's more like, sometimes it's either like they evolve into like even more detailed, or some of the time it's like they simplify things even more to be able to draw faster, basically.
Audience isn't gonna bite on that. They know a potential speculator's gonna see that and think, aha, you tried to get me, Mr. Paul, but I'm smart enough to hodl the manga so I can make even more money later, never realizing that what they're really being sold is the idea that an unreadable book in a useless...
Frankly, I still haven't actually read anything by him. I had watched 20 episodes of Monster, but I never finished it. But it is legendary, and I recommend that show. I think the episodes are on YouTube too. Naoki Urasawa no Manben, and it's really fun. I mean, there's so many great authors that they interview. The artist of Ashita no Joe, you know, the artist of Kuragame, many legends, and again, it's pretty cool because the interviewer is a fellow mangaka, so the conversation are like, you know, a lot less basic question, I guess.
plastic box is magically worth more than the book alone. Logan and Jeremy aren't alone, though. There are dozens of card and crypto bro sycophants talking up manga investments in their replies and quotes, LARPing as longtime otaku who still have their One Piece from 25 years ago and are maybe gonna get it graded, and attacking anyone who dares to question the wisdom of their investing gurus. They've got dudes on Reddit hyping each other up about their tankobon gets and all the generational wealth they're about to generate in conversations indistinguishable from any NFT pre-sale, and dudes who already have generational wealth selling slabs back and forth to each other at many times their market value just to create.
Okay, maybe I'm not gonna get generational wealth. I just opened this page and yeah, maybe this isn't good. This is very dirty. The page is yellow. I don't know what happened. Okay, maybe I'm not gonna get rich. Do you call Oda or Echido or Mr. Oda or Mr. Echido? In the West, I think everybody call him Oda. Obviously, I know in Japan it would be disrespectful, right? But I'm sure you're used to it. We kind of use the last name of someone. Yeah. Like, I guess I say Aoyama Gosho, but I don't know why. I could just say Gosho, I know. I don't know. It depends on the name. Yeah. And I definitely don't say like San, Sama, you know. I guess if I speak in Japanese, I would try to say that, but yeah.
The illusion of demand. This is called wash trading, and in traditional commodities markets, it's actually illegal, but in a neat little legal loophole, individual collectibles don't count as commodities, so you can just do whatever you want with those. And just as they did and do with Pokemon cards, they've been doing it with manga for the last year or so. Just take a look at this totally legit auction reported by Swaggle House in early April of, by an astounding coincidence, the exact same two Zashi that Logan Paul was planning to buy just 16 days later, with a graded Dragon Ball going for 45 grand and One Piece for 42.5. Now, just looking at how close those prices are, anyone who knows anything about these books can immediately tell something's up here. The 42-year-old Dragon Ball Key Zashi is substantially rarer than the 29-year-old One Piece one, for which both the current and previous sales prices shown here are ridiculously inflated. The last recorded heritage auction sales for One Piece from before Beckett Bros started pumping the prices was in 2023 for a much less insane $2,000, and even that is well above the market average. Looking at eBay listings from this year, a near mint copy in Britain sold for about $800 on March 11th, and on April 17th, this one went for $1,600. And before WrestleMania, you'd find these things going for even lower prices on Mercari and Yahoo auctions in Japan all the time. But ironically, it's the slabs that really lay the lie.
Wait, what does WrestleMania has to do with this?
I bear here a Dragon Ball 6.5 and a One Piece 5.5.
Printing characters on Japanese bills will make Japanese yen great again. Wow. That's a radical idea, but you know what? I would vote for you. Put anime girls on the money and I would vote for you. Yes. I'm sure that will solve everything.
Going for 40 grand? Any remotely credulous reporter would immediately question that, but we don't got one of those. We got Swaggle House and friends, whose other friends really want them to sell you some Beckett slabs.
But of course, this all started with, when friend of the channel, Jeremy Padua, talked about, his speculation of manga. What if manga becomes the biggest collecting vertical and like Beckett becomes the grading company?
With Jeremy and his content on that table, he's got like 100 Beckett slabbed mangas, right? Because he's spending a ton of money. This is great for Beckett branding.
Guys, let's take a quick moment to talk about the sponsor of today's video, Heritage Auction.
Was that the legendary double shill technique?
Jeremy is obviously investing in the top end of things. That's why the prices are enormous. So maybe it really is just scratching the surface. Maybe this idea of buy your slabbed mangas now.
Noel is on 100 yen coin and boobs pops out from. You could do some kind of those like 3D one, I guess, that they do on some bill.
now is still very early.
And once you're aware of that agenda, you start to see it everywhere in these collectors' posts. They're all taking legitimately rare and pricey manga or one-of-a-kind items like scripts, then surrounding them with common tankobons to create the appearance of value by association. The ones who can afford it are intentionally grossly overpaying for top grades out of the few dozen first print tanks that have ever been graded, all to trick you into thinking that One Piece, Dragon Ball, and Naruto Volume 1, some of the most printed books in the history of books, will magically become rare treasures if only they're encased in the magic plastic. You know, I wonder who posted that photo. Oh, hey, would you look at that? Beckett Collectibles. And of course, Jeremy's right there in the quotes expressing a high level of conviction for this extraordinary and overlooked category. Conviction that's supposed to mean something, coming from the man who predicted Pokemon, an angle that you can find Jeremy playing up elsewhere on his own Twitter. But in that same video, he made another prediction that immediately discredits the idea he has any prophetic powers.
And once you get beyond Pokemon, go a couple more years to Yu-Gi-Oh! In 2002, I have the PSA 10 Blue Eyes White Dragon card, the grail of Yu-Gi-Oh!
Anyone who knows...
Is that the grail of Yu-Gi-Oh? I had one. I remember, like, when I was young, I always tell the story of, like, the Pokemon card I stole. I skip it. And there was a Blue Eyed White Dragon. And as a kid, from, like, the other kid talking about Yu-Gi-Oh, we all thought that was, like, the sickest card that I had. And then Exodia, I guess, would have been the ultimate thing. Yeah. I mean, I don't know why he's even saying stuff like this, in the sense of, like, it's niche, right? I mean, in the first place, you know, manga anime is more niche than comic books and, you know, Pokemon cards, because you might say Pokemon cards is manga anime, and sure it is, but it's exported way beyond that, right? Like, it's on par with basically comics. It's a whole different world. So, like, if you knew anything about the medium, you would know that Yu-Gi-Oh! Is, like, even more niche inside the whole niche. I mean, I don't know. Only Konami can scalp the community into buying more nostalgia stuff.
Anything about Yu-Gi-Oh! And the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community can tell you that's nonsense. With a very small handful of exceptions, the only value a Yu-Gi-Oh! Card will ever have is its ability to win games. Rarity is only a factor for staples, either because you can flex on a motherfucker while playing out your entire very shiny deck in one turn, or because
I think the difference is that I do hear about people playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game, while for Pokemon, I literally don't know if people play the game. I never hear anything about people playing the card game, you know what I mean? I only hear about, like, buying the card and reselling them and all that.
Konami's keeping a new power card rarity lock to make more money selling more boosters. If one card gets banned, a $1,500 deck can drop to $40 literally overnight. It's a speculator's worst nightmare. When Logan Paul announced he was getting into Yu-Gi-Oh! Last month, no doubt on Jeremy's advice, the entire community laughed him out of the room. And we can too. We do, unfortunately, just have to accept that the richest LARPers in the room are gonna buy up the rarest, most one-of-a-kind anime-related items. In any growing fandom, stuff like that floats to and past the top eventually. But we don't have to accept their LARPing premise that a several 100,000-of-a-kind Zashi like One Piece Chapter 1 is one-of-a-kind just because no other plastic box has the same arbitrary number on it. We don't have to acknowledge that this specific Dragon Ball jump that they grossly overpaid for is the Dragon Ball jump, because it's...
In the end, this feels like a non-drama. I mean, I get why you made a video, but it's a non-drama for me in the sense of, like, this is, the same as, like, the Pokemon situation and all of the other scalping and speculative market and hobby situation. Like, as someone with no money, this has nothing to do with me in the sense of, like, you know, you might say that all of this kind of trickles down to the lower level, you know, and it kind of does. I mean, with Pokemon, I guess it's the biggest example because, like, even normal kid who want card can't get it because scalper, like, buy everything to make money off it. But in this context, I don't see how it's going to be a problem. Like, we're not running out of manga to buy. I don't see like Scalper going out of their way to just buy, you know, every single manga on the shelf or something. So, you know, I think this is like less of a threat to this hobby than it is to Pokemon. Yeah. Even though I hate it, you know, obviously, I hate it, but there's no stopping those rich people again. Like, they are so rich that they can just keep doing this, and what can you do?
Not. It only becomes the Dragon Ball if enough idiots buy into their scheme to submit their own copies for grading, which would put it at the top of a pile of hundreds rather than currently dozens. And make no mistake, Paul's copy will stay on top of that pile. Beckett has no reason to grade any submission higher, no matter how many they get, because the whole system is arbitrary and subjective, and they can give any undamaged manga any number they want. They deliberately set the target at a 9.2 to make you think, wow, there's a whole 8 points above that. I could totally get lucky if I send mine in, but you won't get lucky. Someone will eventually, probably someone who knows someone with a 9.3 or 4 to keep the floor low for a couple more years, but only when they need Paul and Padawer to make another record-setting purchase and rev up the hype cycle again. And while I'm calling shots, let me tell you where I think the current hype campaign is going. It is not a coincidence that one day after their kayfabe trash talk on WrestleMania, iShowSpeed was the first guy calling Logan Paul a tourist, and it's not a coincidence that Logan Paul took his promo picture for the One Piece Zashi in front of the WrestleMania stage. All of this touristy
So WWE is gonna advertise all this bullshit? I could believe it.
tweeting, sarcastically taunting One Piece fans about how much love they've shown him as he shows off things he's bought that are supposed to make us jealous, every one of which has multiple blue check accounts replying with the same AI manufactured meme of Monkey D Speed decking Logan Charlos, by the way. It's all heel work. He is intentional.
He edited himself into Charlos' whole thing, into a celestial dragon, like a slave-owning, like, incarnation of racism. Good job, Logan Paul. You've clearly watched One Piece. When you get bombarded both by his persona and him being out of character. I've seen clips of him. Some are, like, annoying, but some are actually kind of entertaining. I don't really follow him because I just don't really follow any of this kind of, like, biggest YouTuber these days, but as far as I know, he hasn't done any scam, as far as I know. So at least he's way better than the others, yeah.
Using toxicity and tribalism in the anime community to build heat for a grudge match at probably SummerSlam 26, where Speed is gonna kick his ass and take the graded One Piece from him, thus turning a relatively common $1,000-ish Zashi into a prize with a storyline and a symbol to anime fans everywhere of gatekeeping the tourists, which in turn will cement the idea in pop culture that manga in a slab is special and worth more than manga you can read, which of course he's hoping will in turn make the other two One Piece.
The usual loud annoying streamer motherfucker, but once nobody will just drop the beat and make fun of community for being transphobic.
Zashi that he bought, even the one with the scuffed, chewed up corners, worth more than he ever paid for the one that Speed is gonna take from him. A price, I want to note, that has never been disclosed in any of these tweets or videos where they're flexing the $550K they spent on Dragon Ball, because it probably wasn't that much, and it would make the scam really obvious if they told you what they paid. And what I think makes this branding strategy especially obvious is how Jeremy has also pivoted to rage bait, pathetically transparent Gen AI rage bait of him as the oldest manga fan ever after all of his attempts at positive publicity fell on their faces. Though, just to be clear, I'm not showing you any of these tweets to have you guys go yell at these guys. And I'm not just saying that to cover my ass like a drama tuber. I really mean it. When you quote dunk on Paul and Padawer saying, "You're not a a real fan. You don't deserve the One Piece Chapter 1 or the Dragon Ball Chapter 1 or the Big Toblerone. No matter how brutally you ratio their asses, you're giving them exactly
More forgiving of the technology.
what they want.
I'm like slowly giving up. Yesterday I literally had that feeling of like going to my YouTube recommendation and like I found a thumbnail where AI, and what I've been doing for a while is that I have this add-on to Firefox where I can blog video and blog channels. You know, something that YouTube doesn't let you do. So for a while I've been doing that. But yesterday I was like, man, what even is the point anymore? Every day, you know, it's like 10-20 video, 10-20 channel I have to block. What even is the point anymore, right? I mean, it's just like tiring.
Associating their names with the brand names of these anime and reinforcing the idea that these slabbed up collectibles that they overpaid for are something special that only a real anime fan would deserve. Somehow more special and more valuable than any of the vast majority of identical Shonen Jump issues and tankobons out there, which nobody's bothered to...
Sure, right, I mean, if you want to play that game, it becomes quickly stupid, right? You're talking about One Piece, Dragon Ball, I mean, like, if you're actually into this community, yeah, you know that there's no way that this is really truly, like, the cool, rare stuff to have, right? I mean, you know, I don't have it anymore because I sold it for money, obviously, but a couple years ago, I bought, like, some Just USA limited English edition of Magikoi, visual novel. And again, there was like maybe a few hundred in print because it's so niche, right? And it took literally years to arrive after I bought it. And I was really happy with it. I mean, you know, both because I love that VN, it's one of my favorites. And also like just the concept of like, again, there's so little, like there's literally a few hundred out there. I might be the only person in France to have it. You know, that felt kind of cool. But, you know, having like a copy of freaking Dragon Ball, like one of the most popular things of all time, I don't know. Like, even with your grading bullshit, it doesn't feel very cool, you know? And yet, because all the money in it, I mean, it doesn't matter if it feels cool or not, you know? People are doing it anyway. Yeah.
Submit to Beckett because, again, manga grading is obviously a scam. As long as they can get you talking about anything other than that fact, Paul, Padawer, Beckett, and all of their bros win. But if you focus on the scam part of the story, if you explain why grading manga is bullshit to your friends and fellow fans, or just share this video so I can explain it for you, and if you make people at cons and online who do buy and sell graded shit, especially tankobons, feel as stupid and unwelcome as they are, we might just be able to excise these parasites before they can fully sink their teeth in. By forming a united front, you guys can starve Beckett out of your hobby, and if they go, the speculators and scalpers will go with them. Make Logan Paul apologize to Japan again. Hey!
It's way too, like, it's just impossible, come on. Again, like, over the last few years, you know, even though I don't have the biggest interest, I've watched videos about, you know, drama of YouTubers. I don't know how many I've seen about Logan Paul, and every year the 2 or 3 scams that he does. And I don't even think I've seen half of the videos about the different things he's done. And yet again, he's still around. Like, no matter how many times he gets exposed for like literally scamming people in the most like clear way possible, it doesn't seem to matter. So again, to me, I understand why there's a video about it, but this feels like it won't be much. It should be fine, you know. Regular manga will still be fine. Yeah, like if you're stupid enough to want to buy like a $10,000 or even $1 million, if you have that kind of money, you know, like Shonen Jump, I mean, you know, I don't think we're on the same level of human being, and I don't think there's anything you could say to that person to change their mind. Yeah. Anyway, still, interesting topic, but also kind of depressing, yeah. Kind of depressing. But yeah, I don't think we should be too scared, like, especially for manga, I should be fine. But I guess in the hobby, there's maybe other things that could potentially you know, suffer. I don't know what it would be. I mean, I don't think they would really touch anime in Blu-ray. I don't think they would care. It's too specific. So like, figurine maybe, but meh, no, I don't think so. Yeah. Anyway, interesting topic. I'll take a quick break before we watch the next one. The next one seems to be about like the worst anime director or something, according to the thumbnail. Yeah, that's some crazy scores. Okay, coming back. Okay, I'm back. Sorry for the wait. Okay, so let us watch the next video. I got feared knowing that ChatGPT in research did cyber attack without asking. Scary. So this is Nobody's Done It Worse, and yeah, I don't have much more context, but let's watch it.
We all have some idea of how hard it is to truly be the best of the best. But you know what's even harder than that? Being the worst of the worst. At the peak of human performance, you'll find dozens of almost equally qualified rivals vying for the top spot. But at the bottom of the valley, there are millions. To truly become the worst, say, anime director of all time, you would have to underperform every half-assed hack, overconfident fool, and fatally overworked isekai phoner inner who's ever kameh'd a hameha. Not
interesting topic because I don't actually have an idea of who it might be. I don't know like tons of directors, to be honest. These days I've been trying to more often look up directors to slowly start remembering name. But I'm still early into that.
Not just once, but consistently. It's not enough to make one really bad anime. You'd need to try over and over and never make a good one. Not even by accident. Yet despite those unfathomable odds, despite his countless competitors, one man has managed to lie below all the others at the absolute nadir of this art form. With an average MAL score of 3.32 out of 10 and a career best of 4 points.
Okay, I was thinking, is this the director of Amitsu no Mars? Mars of Destruction it is. It's a like two or three that are known to be, I mean, I don't know if it's really true anymore, but like some of the worst, if not the worst ever. I watched them, they were definitely pretty bad. I still feel like there's worse stuff that I've watched, but they were pretty bad. But at least they were short.
7-1, which he had help on. No one else even comes close to his consistency. And his most impressive records sit comfortably below the likes of X-Arm, Gibiate, Pupa, even Cronexia and the 8 Seals, with an unshakable iron grip on the ANN database and MAL and IMDb's bottom 2 anime.
Tenku non Zato Skelter Even. I only know Mars of Destruction.
Of all time. Well, technically one of them's bottom 3 on MAL, slightly behind whatever the this is. But whatever the that was is only like a 2-minute long experimental short film a lot of people don't even consider to be a real anime. And one of this guy's real anime still has a lower rating than that. His name is Yoshiteru Sato, and this is his story. But first, this is a polite reminder that I have a Patreon on which you can read my old scripts and watch uncensored cuts of many videos, including this one, for a very reasonable price. It also hosts extended cuts of the movie reviews that Yazzie and I have been doing lately on our second channel, Basement Life, which, if you're not familiar, is ultimate for port enjoyment. Speaking of, Mr. Sato Sensei's tale is ultimately inseparable from that of the company where he committed his crimes against anime, Idea Factory, an anime studio that isn't an anime studio, it's a video game developer.
I see. You know what? Let me just pull up Mal so we can take a look at things while we go at it. I just want to see things. ID Factories, company. Okay. But they've done some Neptunia too. Like, have I watched anything from them that I like? Not that I see.
If you're aware of them at all, it's either from their work on Hyperdimension Neptunia, the JRPG series for guys who really want to f their PlayStations, or possibly this iconic PS2 dub.
What's Tokyo?
The world I came from. How do I get back to where I came from?
Wow.
Oh, that. Well, the thing is...
Or perhaps you've seen Diabolic Lovers, the
heard
second
about
worst
it.
rated reverse harem anime on all of MAL, which is also the 6th highest rated anime based on an Idea Factory game. Sato didn't direct that one, obviously.
This doesn't look that bad. It looks at least competently made.
It's slightly over a 5 out of 10, but he did have a hand in its production and all the others as the co-founder and current president of the entire company. A company much better known in its native Japan by the affectionate nickname Idea Faku, which means exactly what it sounds like it does. Idea has stood as a pillar of the Japanese kusoge, or shitty game fandom, ever since the release of their very first in-house title, Spectral Tower.
Okay, damn, I didn't think this is connected. I know this too. I've watched a video by, there's this channel called A Japanese Dev in Japan Explains or something, I think. And he does a lot of video about kusoge, and I'm pretty sure he talked about this one and another one from ID Factory. So not only do they make some of the worst game, but they make some of the worst anime. How the fuck is this even a thing? And how do they stay alive? Interesting.
PS1 roguelike with 52 monsters, 33 weapon types, 23 different items, 55 burgers, 55 fries, 55 tacos, 55 pies, and 11,130 dungeon floors required to beat the game. And 10,000 of those are in one dungeon. So good fucking luck not dying there. That game is also where we find one of Sato's earliest credits as the CG producer for its cutscenes, and even in this nascent work, we get glimpses of the kind of quality he was capable of pulling out of a team. But not content to merely produce, he also animated all the cutscenes for another studio's game that Idea Factory published earlier that same year, CG Mukashi Banashi. And it's here that we see what he was really capable of. Now, before you say anything, remember, this was 1996. The front...
Sure, so far I was gonna say actually, like from the Tower game, what it is known as the kusoge, you know, some of the 3D was really not that bad for like the time period. You know, it does look goofy, but think of the time period.
Tier days of CGI, barely 2 years after Donkey Kong Country. So instead of judging them by today's standards, it's only fair to compare Sato's CG cutscenes to those of his...
Okay, but he's gonna put us Final Fantasy, I assume. Not everybody is Square Enix.
contemporaries. See, it's not that bad. Wait, no, shit, that was 95. Can we get a Tekken cutscene from 1996?
They don't have the same budget, come on.
Well, Namco was a pretty huge established developer at that point. Plus, it's a...
Right, I mean, it's like comparing Disney to, you know, some small OVA-funded, you know, director.
completely different genre. I think the only really fair comparison would be another recent Japanese startup making an RPG of their own with CG cutscenes in the very same year. But, I mean, where would you even find...
What this?
Okay, so FromSoft clearly had a slight edge
FromSoft.
there in terms of camera work, lighting, sound design, actually animating things, and basic ability to tell a story. But Idea Factory still had them and damn near everyone else in the entire gaming industry beat in terms of sheer ambition. Because when Sato left his job at the anime production subcontractor Studio Dub to join up with former Data East producer Shingo Kuwana, they didn't just set out to make games. No, they were gonna leverage both of their talent. resumes to build a multimedia tie-in driven IP empire to rival the gaming industry's titans.
Oh,
of course, those titans already had massive intellectual properties that anime studios and production committees would actually want to license, but Idea Factory's founders had a plan to circumvent the entire studio system by
Just do
making
it
their
yourself.
own anime in-house alongside
Which is a great anime. Do it yourself through, I think. Is that the say it? Watch it.
the video games, just like Gynax.
Foreshadowing is a literary.
And the heart of those grand plans lay in the IF Neverland brand, a sprawling shared world comprised of 40 different nations that would serve as a canvas for all manner of generic fantasy stories, starting with the obligatory quest to kill the Demon King that kicks off their 1997 strategy RPG Spectral Force. Well, technically it started with Spectral Tower, but that game barely even had a story, and all most people saw of it was this bartender jerking off. So yeah, Spectral Force, which to its credit does at least...
Car design, love it. I always talk about it, but that very late 90s, early 2000 look, I mean, look at this stand elf girl, I mean, seriously. Love it. Love it.
Put a mildly interesting twist on the trope. The aforementioned Demon King ruled the land for nearly 1,000 years of relative peace until the rebellious human hero took up a mythical magic sword to... you know what? I'll let the game's title screen take it from here. This is a story which became to be called Neverland Great War later. A hero knocked the devil down just as a legend. After the devil had died, a country was splited and people began to fight. As the player...
Shit. That's like...
It's your job to pick a faction of those people, led by the hero, the Demon King's daughter, who is somewhat confusingly named Hero, and a bunch of other guys representing all the other generic...
Well, it's not about your family, you know, it's a deep message already. It's about who you are, who you choose to be, you know?
Fantasy races, some of whom I think you have to like unlock by beating the other campaigns, and shape the outcome of Neverland Great War yourself by muddling around in menus mostly, and sometimes watching simulated autoplay battles that all look like this.
Oh wow.
I think
that's ugly. I'm sure at first they wanted to make it like Fire Emblem, but I think they forgot the very good looking sprite along the way. Wow.
I think there may also be some like intel gathering, kingdom building, commodity trading gameplay in there too, but those features might have been added in the sequel. The game's...
I mean, at least in concept this sounds like fun, right? I absolutely love the kind of JRPG where you can conquer like the world, Kikochu dance, Sengoku dance. In concept, it's great.
Labyrinth of opaque systems isn't very well documented in Japanese, let alone English, so it's hard to say exactly how it played, though if the English translated DS sequel Spectral Force Genesis is any indication, very poorly. That game's second most positive review on Metacritic from RPG Fan concludes, "Don't go near this," and refuses to liken it to even torture because at least that would make you feel something.
But you still give it a 59. What?
At any rate, one thing I do know about Spectral Force 1 is it's where we get our first humble taste of Idea F***'s grand anime ambitions in the form of some opening credits, which Sato apparently animated while also directing the CG cutscenes for Idea Factory's horror visual novel Yakuto Noroi no Game, which was, to be fair, a huge improvement on Spectral Tower.
This looks creepy in a good way.
And to be even fairer, if I may put my OP analysis hat on for a moment, his work on Spectral Force was even better than that, almost downright subpar, demonstrating a workmanlike technical competence that's mainly let down by a singer with all the energy of someone trying to play the game. And just 1 year later, to promote the release of Spectral Force 2, Sato would finally make his full anime directing debut with a 2-part OVA adaptation of the original game, Prologue. But there are 2 other things that make this work particularly noteworthy among his filmography. Firstly, it somehow got a dub from ADV, which explains a lot about how they went out of business, actually. And it also happens to be Sato's second highest rated solo directing effort. So when I show you this...
Yeah, hey, you'll never believe the news! Prana just saw us in her crystal ball!
Just remember, it's all downhill from here. Literally all downhill. I'm not even gonna bother showing you his best solo directing effort, because that one's really just a compilation of cutscenes that they outsourced to WoW World to animate. That's how bad these are. He was able to outdo everything else he ever did by just not trying at all. Plus, the first third of those cutscenes are just a rehash of this OVA, because the game they're from is just a remake of the first 3 Spectral Force games as a crappy FF Tactics knockoff this time instead of a crappy Dragon Force knockoff. But now's the part where I get to tell you everything that happens in the crappy OVA based on that crappy Dragon Force knockoff. The story kicks off with a graphic sequence of a scantily clad angel lady being violently crucified by peasants with pitchforks who we never find out who she was or why that happened, and it never comes up again. Then, slightly less than 1,000 years later, some sort of low-poly comet thing flies across the exact same shot 5 times in a row.
Okay.
Which makes an old guy in a fancy hat nod, an elf lady in a fancy bed fear sweat, and this blonde samurai guy, fancy bed fear sweat, and this blonde samurai guy,
that was one of the worst cuts I've ever seen.
Fancy bed fear sweat, and this
Like, first look at this, right? The freaking trees, what the fuck is wrong with them? I guess they're in Chile, right? He looks so out of place in this. And then the ultra low amount of frame there.
Blonde samurai guy.
There's like 5 or 6 frames on this. It looks so choppy.
In a fancy bed fear sweat, and this blonde samurai guy,
Okay.
Honestly, I've got no idea. Then the comet crashes, and it turns out to be...
At last, a way to kill the Demon King Janus, the Great Sword, Tenmaken.
Then some stuff explodes, some guys stab some skeletons stab some guys, the Power Rangers are there, and a lady with a crystal ball says...
The battle is over. The humans have lost.
To which a guy with some horns replies...
Order my demons to pursue them.
I kind of wish he used the Japanese dub, I mean, both because I prefer that, but also, you know, I just want to see if the dub is bad in Japanese, which is so rare.
We must destroy them as they would have destroyed us.
Which I guess happens off screen while the lady goes back to a castle where a floating skeleton tells her...
Princess Hero is gonna have to fight the old monster that is settled in the Canyon Gorge.
Okay.
I told her it would be dangerous. I knew it.
I told her we'd fight it together after the battle. She is
Why
too
did she
careless.
do it? Oh, I told her it would be so bad and so dangerous.
Kill me.
Promise I didn't leave anything out of that summary. That's just what this whole OVA is like. Although the skeleton did leave out the important detail that Princess Hero is fighting that monster naked, so if you're not watching this on Patreon, you can't see her sister swoop in to save her, which prompts the sister to hire some bodyguards for Hero.
We're gonna be somebody! Prana hired us! All 3 of us! You, Sato, and me! That makes 3!
And then send her off to do some adventuring bullshit with them and her dad's magic soul-reaping scythe as a way to keep them both safe from the hero, who's coming in armed with some deadly one-liners.
Now let's see if these bony demons have any guts left.
And an even deadlier sword, which is so powerful it turns this into a Flash cartoon.
Chiffon!
I'm alright, but those...
Oh man, this shot looks so bad. Like the detail on his face, the freaking shading, the shadows are like... They don't even make sense. Wow.
Demons aren't. Let's go.
Of course, upon realizing that her walk cycles turned into a low-res PNG bouncing up and down, Hero is alerted to the danger, but before she can get back to the castle, they're attacked by a summoned skull, which can teleport and has a healing factor, because I guess this is the bullshit no-rules anime version of Yu-Gi-Oh! And even though lab coat Shinji and Walmart Guts stay back to make it distracted...
Come on! Die, you demon scumbag!
It still stalls them just long enough that after the martial arts guy, who's also named Sato, flies through the CGI woods to the castle, that real-life Sato's team still can't animate nearly as good as FromSoft did 2 years ago. They arrive to see the hero stabbing Hero's dad.
Oof.
That's not a shitpost edit. That's the real anime they made.
Bruh. I can't believe
the
it.
second best anime they made. And in one last cruel twist of fate, Hero has to use the soul scythe thing on her own dad and her sister so they can take the legendary sword to the afterlife together, because it's basically like a magic nuke and they can't trust the humans to use it responsibly, and that's why he let himself get all stabbed and stuff. And they resolve this heavy emotional conundrum with literally the Dragon Quest meme.
I can't, I won't.
Princess, you must.
But way more drawn out.
It is her last wish. Imagine how painful this must be for her. You have to grant this wish. You are the only one who can do it, and she trusts you. I know you can do this, Hero. The only one who can do it.
What is going on?
She trusts you.
They're like moving his mouth and then like his eyebrow and the muscle next to his eye is like moving at the same time. It looks so freaking weird.
For her, you have to grant this wish. You are the only one who can do it, and she trusts you. I know
It's
you
like
can
twitching.
do this, Hero.
And the hero gets so caught up in all this powerful Shakespearean drama that he whiffs his chance to finish the job.
Chiffon.
Oh, right.
Freeze, you scumbag! We showed that demon who's boss. Whoa, hey!
Well, not level voice actors. Huh?
Join him.
Right!
So now world peace is over and there's a big war that's gonna be on. And meanwhile, in Tokyo, Japan, this lady's minding her own business when some old f in a temple somewhere gives himself an aneurysm to isekai her and also bleach her hair for this obviously evil guy, and that's it. That's how the episode ends. Of course, in part 2, we do find out what his whole deal is, and it's one of those things where nothing I could possibly say would be funnier than just playing.
I mean, I kind of love it, right? Like, it's terrible, but it looks fun to watch for being terrible, to like constantly be shocked at all the terrible choice. Huh? And at the same time, I don't know what kind of budget they are, right? You know, is it a case of like they had a normal OVA budget? So this is genuinely terrible for the budget they had? Or is it that they had like barely no budget or something? You know, there's always like circumstances. And, you know, as a fan of anime, I can't help but also like, you know, I can't help but say, yeah, this is terrible, right? And there's so many things wrong with it. But it's also like, you know, I really appreciate how insane it is to even make any kind of anime episode. You know, I always think back on Shirobako, you know, understanding a bit more of the process and the amount of people who have to take care of like every second of what is, you know, in an anime. So, you know, it's terrible, but also like, I want to know the behind the scenes circumstances to this becoming like this. Beyond just like the creators having no talent.
the clip.
Perhaps it's time I fought against those enemies who deny my greatness.
Do you mean the demons or the human race, my lord?
Don't you see, I refer to anyone who has ever been mean to me. I wasn't joking.
More specifically, his plan is to take over the world.
Of course!
And install Isekai Girl, who apparently fell in love with him off screen, as his puppet empress. But we gotta get through the A-plot before he explains why he's doing that, which is both way more complicated than the last episode and way simpler to summarize. Everyone's fighting everyone now, so Hiro needs some allies. And conveniently, she's already getting offers from some of the humans, but she doesn't wanna on account of she's super duper racist. Partly on account of, you know, a human murdered her entire family in front of her like 5 minutes ago, but mainly due to the answer to another lingering question from episode 1.
Take a look at the goblin on her hand. What's that all about?
Hiro's a half demon, see, which made other demons be all mean to her. So one day she decided to go out and play spin around and laugh with some creepy ass human children. But then one of the kids tripped, so...
That child is a demon!
I hate demons.
Kill the demon!
What?
That's how she got the hand, plus the racism. And while she's trying to get over the racism so her country isn't all wiped out and stuff, one of her bodyguards decides to go off on his own to do some unofficial diplomacy with the sweaty elf lady from the prologue.
But I had heard in the forest how you want to protect the forest, you know, from bad things and from bad people. So I thought, well, that's what Hiro wants, so, hey, great.
Great.
This is voice acting.
What?
Then they're interrupted by the samurai guy from the prologue, who offers to make the alliance a three-way, but she hates that guy, so she'll only join if Labcoat McGuns can come up with something more to offer her. Whilst he's pondering what that could possibly be, the humans start marching to exterminate the demons who've set up a clever ambush in response.
Is it time?
Shh! But then they all get double ambushed by the obviously evil guy who finally reveals his true identity.
At last we meet, my dearest little sister.
Just who are you? Tell me.
Like most racists, not very bright. Anyway, he was banished by their dad for being obviously evil, but now dad's dead, so he's like, join me, sister. And she's like, no, you're obviously evil. And he's like, okay, bitch, eat a Kira arm. But then he gets stopped by this random old guy and blasts off. And to distract from how badly he just got owned, he makes fun of her deformity.
Remember, your hand! It's a sign the world hates you!
So the humans are all like,
weird. Let's go finish them off now.
But then the nerd comes riding in with the cavalry to
let's go. The ride of the roidim.
Chase him off.
Damn,
Little less epic.
Cavalry he acquired by figuring out what the elf queen really wanted, 24/7 access to that sweet, sweet nerd dick.
I find that all sorts of things can be really beautiful to me. Even strange little men without proof.
So he's got to go back with her now and do a lot of stuff. But before he does, Hiro has a chance to say, goodbye, thank you, and also, by the way, I've stopped being racist, you cured me. And that's it. Yeah. That's how the entire OVA ends. You spend $30 to $40.
Even David Guetta couldn't do as good at ending racism.
On a VHS, and the moral of the story is f you, buy 2 video games now. Which, spoilers, is the moral of most of these stories. They're all just piles of half-finished dog shit that can only really be understood by playing the even bigger pile of horse shit they were made to advertise.
I mean, as someone who's watched a lot of anime OVA, especially last year, where, you know, I thought it was really time like going to so much of the OVA of the 80s and 90s. You know, a lot of them are definitely way better than this in production and, you know, maybe story they're trying to tell, but they all are kind of like insanely fast-paced, insanely truncated because, you know, they either like piece of a story or they're trying to tell a story by condensing it as fast as possible. You know, even many of the ones that would be considered worth watching, It's more for like maybe the animation, the car design, you know, music, because the story is always like kind of like this. It is either very rushed or like such a small piece of a story, as they only have a few episodes.
And I cannot emphasize enough that this one, with its sloppy 2D and 3D animation that go together like peanut butter and engine coolant, its agonizingly yappy yet egregiously underexplained story, and music that ranges from flatly forgettable to Resident Evil Director's Cut core.
I will order their annihilation now.
Is the best one. The very next IF Neverland OVA, 2001's Generation of Chaos, somehow manages to tell an even more confusing story with even worse animation and even uglier CGI, if you can believe it. And it feels...
Well, it's easy to believe. I mean, those two OVA probably didn't make any money, so they had even less money for the next one.
Even less conclusive, despite being the backstory of Chiffon, the hero who killed the Demon King in the last OVA. I mean, you'd think that closure would come free with that premise. Just, you know, show what made him want to murder that guy so bad, then people can go watch the anime where he murders that guy. You know, screenwriting 101. Unfortunately, the screenwriter for all of Yoshiteru Sato's anime never took that class, and that screenwriter's name is also Yoshiteru Sato, who apparently thought that what we really needed to know is how their Temu Pokemon game Monster Complete World, whose player insert protagonist has the same generic-ass design as Chiffon, ties into this grand dark fantasy war story. I don't know if I'm like fully getting across how dumb that is. Imagine if Nintendo made an anime that like explicitly paints out that the official sequel to Pokemon Red and Blue was Fire Emblem. So instead of, I don't know, demons murdering his whole family or something, this anime is about how the hero used to be a Pokemon master, but then he turned 14, which is too old to play Pokemon. So all his Pokemon stopped listening to him, except for this one big bug guy that he decides to ride back to the forest that it was born in, and that's how he's finally going to become a man, by saying bye-bye 20-ton Caterpie. But when he gets there, he doesn't want to say goodbye just yet, so he pauses to rest in a town next to the forest, where he goes shopping for a bit and sees that scruffy commander guy from the end of Spectral Force fall off a tower, so he runs up to help him. But the healer chick and other guy from his party in Spectral Force also run up to accuse him of murdering the commander, and also do this deeply unfunny manzai comedy bit that the OVA just keeps trying to make happen, and every single time it's even worse. But then the commander guy gets up and explains that he was only up there to watch out for all the 20-ton Caterpies that have been rampaging in the city lately. And hey, guess what? Chiffon's 20-ton Caterpie just starts rampaging, so the commander guy's about to kill it. But Chiffon's like, no, it just wants to go through that wall to get back home. So the commander guy kills the wall instead, and it goes back home. And then some unspecified amount of time later, they're all like, hey, remember when that happened? Good times. Anyway, let's go start a genocidal war with demons now. The end. I'd say it's the most pointless and worst written prequel of all time, but I still haven't shown you the second part of this OVA, which is the actual prologue to Generation of Chaos that was advertised on the box of the DVD you paid like 30 to 40 bucks for, and also the whole OP.
That much? That's crazy. As always, I don't know price, but when I was young, like 15 years ago, I'm pretty sure in France at least, DVDs were like 20 euros. Like for a movie DVD, for example.
Of the OVA is just for that part of it, and it's 8 minutes long. In it, there's this half-demon girl named Rosé, whose little sister Amelia is sick with some unspecified little girl who's gonna die disease, and even though she's sick too and really wants to stay home, she's gotta go to work at the loom factory to pay for their medicine or something. I don't know, it's not really clear why. But anyway, she goes and does that, and we spend, I shit you not, an entire minute just watching her do this.
This might be the best part of the DV, I won't lie. Actually, I remember there was Konoha 10. It's anime really like where there's something like this, though it's accompanied by beautiful BGM, but yeah, the same kind of machine being operated, you know, in an ASMR kind of way with some beautiful music.
Until eventually the loom catches fire out of nowhere, so she runs outside where some human soldiers are like, kill the demon! So she runs away from those guys into some demons who are also really racist, and she and her sister get burned at the crucifix. But then actually it turns out that was all just a fever dream and it's all okay. But also coincidentally, while she was asleep, some humans came by and burned her house down with her sister inside it. And then this lady knight rolls up to say, hey man, being a half demon man, shit's rough. So then Rose buries her sister and changes into her protagonist clothes and goes on a dramatic walk through the desert. The end. Having borne witness to these impeccable writing skills, I know we're all thinking the same thing right now. I want to see this guy pen a dry, serious political story next.
Okay.
And that's exactly what we got in Generation Chaos 3.
How do they keep making it? I mean, again, like, obviously, this video is fine, right? Like, it's only recapping the OVA, but I want to know if there's any kind of behind-the-scene interviews and documentaries and explanation about all this. I mean, if they keep making terrible anime and bad games, how do they keep, like, getting any budget to keep making it? I mean, there's no way those two OVAs from before, like, made any money, and from what we've heard, their game also probably didn't make any money. So how the fuck do they make, yet again, a third OVA?
Alongside yet more animation errors and obvious recycling, terrible CGI, poorly chosen music, and even more slideshows than ever before, both in the exposition dumps and a few action scenes where they very clearly just ran out of time and or money for the in-between frames. Aside from a weird bit at the start where a cult or something does some kind of ritual that never comes up again, and then a guy on a beach is attacked by the Evil Dead force and hits it with a sword, this is easily the most coherent of Sato's OVAs, but it's also easily the boringest one. Just a whole lot of people standing around talking about some battles that happened off screen earlier and some other battles that might happen off screen later, with one 6-minute fight scene in the second episode to break up the monotony in theory. I never watch anime at 2x speed, but I had to get through this one, and it still felt too slow. Sato just loves letting the camera linger on the most dogshit CGI you've seen in your life for...
That is something, like, this background is crazy. I feel like CGI in the 80s looked better than this.
Like 5 times as long as he'd need to if it was good, and also just like reusing shots of...
Oh my god, look at this. Like, background is serviceable, sure, but the fucking model, like the character model, like, it looks like a fucking Minecraft character, like it's also square and rectangular. Wow.
Over and over again. And the dialogue has awkward pauses between like every other line, as if it's a game trying to load the next audio clip with a scratched disc. As for how that dialogue's written, about 70...
I mean, obviously it's just an extreme version of what many anime do, but they're much more competent at it, right? A lot of anime will reuse panning shot and some frame, and also, like, you know, do a very slow pan where the character is talking to not have to animate too much, right? But yeah, he's doing it to such an extreme that, like, it becomes too noticeable.
80% of it is just saying war is bad, but we gotta do it, man, over and over and over again. And they try to do a little bit of the, you know, people on both sides aren't so different after all type stuff, but that mostly boils down to just both the commanders got girlfriends, and then after the big sword fight in the climax, the girlfriend of the one who lit himself on fire and jumped out a window for no reason stabs the other one just when he thought it was over. Also, that guy's childhood friend is the key to unsealing some sort of prophecy magic nuke type thing that they were gonna use as leverage, but now that he's dead, his friend's gonna unseal it because, you know, he feels bad or whatever. And then there's an epilogue where this lady we've never seen before talks to that guy on the beach who's dying now because I guess the Evil Dead got him. and then it's over. Besides those bookend bits that I assume only make sense if you've played the game, the whole thing kind of feels like Sato-san was watching Legend of the Galactic Heroes on a bender, said, I could make that, and then banged out the whole script in the time it took to down 2 more strong zeros, which, to be fair, is twice the time I spent on this part of the script, but that's because I want to get to the OVAs you guys are actually here for. Yes, it's finally time to roast the public consensus worst anime of all time. At number 2, Mars of Destruction.
Yeah, I think like 10 years ago or more, I had heard that Mars of Destruction was like the worst thing ever. And it was terrible, right? Like, production value, animation, voice acting, which again, for like, you know, I feel like most of the serial industry is so good, right? It's such a competitive field in Japan that it's so rare to hear like bad Japanese voice acting. I mean, you can call me a weeb for saying that, but I feel like, you know, it's kind of true. I mean, sure, there's some maybe more bland one depending on the voice direction, but bad, it feels much more rare. But this was one of the maybe the first case I checked that one, yeah. And again, like, I do think it's absolutely terrible, but those are like some cheap OVA, and as someone who's again watched so much trash anime, especially like back in 2015-16, where I forced myself to watch every anime for a year of every season, you know, there was some stuff like Big Order or 100 that were like TV anime, right? I mean, with a TV anime budget probably, but in terms of story, characters, and animation, they were like at face value not as bad as those OVAs, but to me, when I compare the two and what they are meant to be, they felt like they were way trashier. I don't know. And the difference also is like the level of bad being entertaining, right? Like Mars of Destruction is kind of like The Room, basically. You know, like it's bad, but it's fun to watch for how bad it is and how baffling it is bad, you know? I think that's the difference.
Destruction. And at number 1, Tenku Danzai Skelter Heaven. Except one of those roasts is going to be a whole lot shorter than I thought it would be going into this, because I just found out that Mars of Destruction wasn't actually directed by Yoshiteru Sato. In fact, it's not a real anime at all, just another cutscene compilation like Spectral Force Chronicle, only without the interstitial text dumps to fill in the gaping holes in the story. MAL and ANN's credits do at least suggest that Sato was responsible for awkwardly slapping these cutscenes together, but according to Moby Games, they were originally directed by some guy from the Idea movie department named Atsuhiko Kobata, which makes a lot of sense, actually, because they don't look nearly as dog shit as any of the other stuff in this video. And once you're aware that there's supposed to be a bunch of shitty visual novel dialogue and combat rhythm minigames set to the Barber of Seville overture stuck in between them, I mean, they're still not great cutscenes, except, of course, for the one where Doc Brown comes in out of nowhere to explain what the f we just watched. Every anime should have one of those. Also, this bit's hilarious. But you can at least see how those cutscenes could potentially make sense with that missing connective tissue.
Sure.
Like, it's definitely a 2 out of 10 anime, but it could easily be maybe like a 4 or 5 out of 10 game. Who knows? The fact that they don't is Sato's fault, though, and maybe you're thinking, well, obviously he learned from his mistakes here and fixed that with the text dumps in Spectral Force Chronicle, except Mars of Destruction's DVD came out 1 month after that one, so he already had the idea for how to fix that problem and just didn't use it here for some reason. Perhaps he already totally burned through Idea Factory's annual PowerPoint budget, or maybe he was really pressed for time, or maybe he just didn't give a shit. Who can say? And if it is the latter case, I mean, who could really blame him? Not only is the story not very good, it's not even original. Like, it's pretty much just Evangelion.
Man, those fucking guns, they're like some weird truncated FAMAS.
Not very good. It's not even original. Like, it's pretty much just Evangelion if instead of a big robot made of aliens, Shinji didn't want to get in a Kamen Rider suit made of aliens, with even the exact same plot twist about the origins of the so-called aliens, and even less subtle symbolism.
Okay. Okay.
It's some hack garbage shit that even Yoshiteru Sato would have some standing to look down on if the last thing that he worked on wasn't an even worse Evangelion ripoff that also borrows a whole lot from Gunbuster. Now, credit where it's due, Tenku Danzai Skelter Heaven, the game, does at least mix its stolen content up a bit. Instead of directly controlling a Wish Shinji this time, you play as a Timu Gunbuster coach charged with overseeing a whole harem's worth of genetically engineered rays who must be seduced into getting in their robots via a shitty dating sim before you can fight the aliens in a shitty rhythm minigame. Also, the plug suit's got that high-cut gunbuster leotard thing going on, plus full boob windows, and the robots are these bubblegum crisis-type exomechs, minus all the protective...
I was gonna say that in Mass Destruction there was quite a bit of bubblegum crisis vibe.
...bits that might prevent a guy from ogling their pilots or
God,
stop this from happening. But hey, do the pilots really need to make it to the hospital if Shinji can finish while they're still in the mechs? Also, I think it goes with hospital.
It's probably like one of the stupidest designs for like a mech I've ever seen. I mean, like, if you can build this fucking like exoskeleton, why wouldn't you build some kind of like protection in the front? Even if you have to leave the head exposed so the user can see, this is such a stupid design. Like, seriously.
If Shinji can finish while they're still in the mechs. Also, I think it goes without saying at this point that the space monsters got tentacles on their tentacles. Full disclosure, some parts at this point that the...
This could be stolen from EDF, Earth Defense Force, maybe?
Space monsters got tentacles on their tentacles. Full disclosure, some parts of that game summary may be completely wrong. That's just what I was able to piece together from the bits of the anime that I could comprehend, plus this one untranslated long play that's up on YouTube, which actually has some animated scenes in common with the OVA, but it's only a couple of them, so I don't think it's another compilation, unless the uploader chose the wrong route and only one of them had animated cutscenes, which I definitely wouldn't put past these idea f***s. But regardless, the game does credit Sato as its animation director, so at the very least, we know it's his fault that it looks like this, which, to be fair, is better than most of his shit just by virtue of how much he copies Makoto Shinkai instead of using ugly CGI. But to be balanced, the CGI he does use is some of the ugliest Idea Factory ever made. It was also some of the last. Their anime department went out of business after this, and the cutscenes Sato compiled in his last two OVAs were instead outsourced to WoW World, which explains why they look so much.
Wait, but at the same time, yeah, it seems like they did more stuff, or am I crazy? Am I on the wrong page, maybe? It's in Mars. Wait, it's listed as WoW World, not ID Factory. Oh, in WoW World they did some pretty alright stuff, like Koya no Kotobuki Ikotai. I like that one. Interesting. Interesting. Sato Yoshiteru. Yeah, that was the last thing he did. Alright. Alright. That was the end, huh?
Better. The anime version of Skelter Heaven also credits him for writing, directing, and storyboarding it, and I do think it bears his creative fingerprints in certain directing choices, like opening on a minute-long establishing shot of a PNG of Earth whose only narrative purpose is to say, yup, we sure are on Earth. Not to mention whatever the heck this transition's supposed to be.
Saki, iku yo.
Okay. That was so good.
No, seriously, I've watched this like...
Absolute cinema.
5 times now, and I still have no idea if that was a flashback or what, let alone what it's trying to tell me about the story and characters. And that's not a one-off problem. The big climactic fight scene is comprised of literally 3 plot beats. They scan the alien to find a weak point, then it counterattacks, then everyone races to see who can sacrifice themselves to hit that weak point first, but the individual shots of the fight are cut together so quickly and awkwardly, you can barely even tell what's happening or why half the time, all to make room for even more redundant dialogue that accomplishes literally nothing.
Again, like, I understand they're not production IG, but recently I've been watching Ghost in the Shell standalone complex, which is from like 2002, 4, 6 around that time. So like literally around and before this. And again, it's production IG, right? I mean, they had, you know, pretty crazy budget, but it's still like insane the difference in 3D between like standalone complex, the Tachikoma and some of the other stuff in that. They even have like some 3D like exoskeleton robot, and you know, and this, I mean, looking at this.
10 seconds later. 聞いたかリン、泣いてる暇はないぞ。
On top of all that, Sato awkwardly jams 3 back-to-back flashbacks right into the middle of the fight, explaining that the girls are genetically engineered super soldiers, and also they don't know how long they have to live because they're prototypes, and Protag-kun has come to feel that taking care of them is more than a job because they had a lot of fun on a sports day or something, which would have completely killed the fight's momentum if it had any. There's also this whole thing right before they fly off where the blonde girl gets all huffy. Protag picked the main girl to deliver the killing blow instead of her, implying it's only because he wants a different kind of blow from the main girl later. And he's like, no, it's because you're too much of a loose cannon. And she's like, oh yeah? I'll prove him wrong by being a loose cannon. And then she follows all of her orders except the one that none of the girls follow. And in the end, she's the only one that we get visual confirmation that she survived. And the whole main plot, as much as there even is one, hinges on the idea that that main girl is in love with the main guy, even though literally their only interaction outside of that argument is her coming to him with concerns about her mortality and him basically saying, shut up and follow orders. They don't even properly establish whether the big squid thing's an actual threat or if he just came to Earth to float around and chill for a bit before getting on with his squid business. He does hit 2 helicopters that were about to shoot him with a laser beam, and there is this weird moment where the main girl mind melds with him for a sec and has a one-sided argument that kind of implies he thinks humans are too violent to exist, but they were kind of gearing up to kill him without so much as saying hello, so that's a pretty reasonable opinion to have, actually. And even after they fucking shoot him, he only causes...
Like, even another thing I want to mention is that a year or so ago on the channel I reacted to Garo, which is a tokusatsu live action, and most of the enemies are like horrors and they're like monsters, right? And it's a tokusatsu live action show from 2006, around the same time as this, and it looks infinitely better, the 3D that they use. And again, they might have bigger budget, but still.
Any collateral damage to the city when he dies. Then the whole thing wraps up with Walmart Gendo deleting Protag from his phone, and 1 year later, oh no, more squids! It's just a fundamental failure of storytelling on every conceivable level, and while I do personally still think that Gibiate and X-Arm being almost
I watched a little bit and it was terrible.
Almost that bad for 12 times as long makes them both a whole lot harder to watch. It still has a strong claim on that worst of all time crown, as do, frankly, most of Sato's anime. But on that note, it is a little strange, don't you think? I mean, Idea Factory spent all these years and not an inconsiderable amount of money trying to advertise their video games with tie-in anime, yet all of them have the same fundamental problem that their commercials you have to buy before you can watch them. You would think at some point they would have tried the most obvious approach of putting one of their anime on television, and you'd be right. In fact, not only did Sato co-direct a proper TV anime way back in 2001 as his second ever anime project, and not only was that anime Run Dim the linchpin of a whole new multimedia franchise tying together a dogshit PS2 auto battler thing, a solid if overcomplicated Dreamcast strategy RPG, and a surprisingly good Wonder Swan shoot 'em up, it was also the first ever full-length, fully 3D anime ever made for television. Ever. No, really. There were a couple short anime before it, like Gregory Horror Show, a few longer shows with CG elements.
Wait.
Like Initial D, and exactly 2 movies, plus Spirits Within came out literally the week after it finished. But this was the first time a Japanese studio ever tried to do the whole reboot thing. Well, technically they outsourced it to a Korean game developer, Digital Dream Studio, who also made the Wonder Swan game, which explains why it's good, and also explains why the show looks so much better than any other 3D animation with Idea Factory's name on it, even if that's not a huge compliment. Okay though, is it really fair to judge an anime this groundbreaking on its visuals? Yeah.
I mean, again, you're telling me this is the first full 3D anime, so by that standard, this is pretty good. Even if it's only 25 years ago.
Absolutely. Reboot was 7 years ago. This came out the same year as that show ended and Jimmy Neutron started. It's got some nice cloth and liquid physics, but even by the standards of the day, the sets are sparse and ugly, the characters inexpressive and unappealing, and the mocap animation is janky as shit. But hey, looks aren't everything, and I mean, surely building an entirely new universe from scratch with the anime as the flagship product instead of having to copy what the games were doing must have given Idea Factory's writers a chance to really flex their creative muscles and tell a bold, original story, the likes of which the anime industry had never... It's Evangelion. They made Evangelion again. Or rather, they made Evangelion for the first time, and this time, in pursuit of maximum mecha marketability, they decided to mash it up with Gundam. So you've got ace mech pilots with special psychic powers fighting on 2 different sides of a morally gray space war, which is happening in space because Tokyo and the rest of the world got all flooded and stuff by global warming instead of the second impact, but still same basic aesthetic. And also, one side of that war is a shadowy corpo governmental organization that's intentionally recruiting child soldiers because they have the best psychic mech pilot powers with an all-caps name that's a subtle allusion to Christian theology. And by subtle, I mean they called it Jesus, which kind of sums up my feelings on
Jesus.
the whole show. Jeez. That sure was ass. I did watch the entire thing in hopes of finding some exceptionally roastable clips, and my hopes did seem justified after seeing episode 1's attempts at ecchi comedy. especially after
Surely,
I saw the
God.
Barbie doll panty shots from the deleted scenes, but it turns out those scenes were deleted because someone looked at them and also presumably that slide down the stairs and said, man, all that really sucks. Let's stop doing stuff like that. And surprisingly, aside from this one really out of place episode where the guys take a day off to pal around the city hitting on random women, they did stop. Sato's co-director, Taisuke Kato, isn't exactly the guy I'd expect to push his boss to improve. He did direct the Kingdom of Chaos OVAs, which are widely regarded as the least terrible Idea Factory anime, but he also directed this f***ing thing.
Watching all this really makes me realize that, I haven't gone out of my way to check out this famous bad stuff outside of Master Destruction. I mean, there's a few terrible anime that I've watched by accident, as I said, watching all the anime of the season or something, but I haven't gone out of my way to try to check out the stuff that is considered like the top worst of all time. I might do that eventually, if I get motivated.
Which, visually at least, is the worst anime this factory ever pumped out by a wide margin. You can barely even call it anime, really. It's more of a motion manga, and I'm pretty confident I could have modeled better 3D sets than this, which is in no way a brag. I can't really speak to the script side of things, though, since nobody's ever bothered to fan translate this piece of shit, so maybe that's enough to save it from being worse than Skelter Heaven. I kind of doubt it based on the jokes I did understand, but it's possible. Actually, judging from the first joke, where a disembodied old man head gets a spray paint tool nosebleed from his own naked granddaughter, I'd be willing to bet pretty big yen that Kato was the one responsible for Run Dim's failed panty gags. But that's the great thing about artistic collaboration. Even the least talented directors imaginable, and if these aren't them, we're getting pretty close, are able to rein in each other's worst impulses and amplify each other's strengths when they work together, especially on longer projects like this that give them a chance to iterate and see where the mistakes are. And even though neither of them has any strengths to amplify, the net result of that here is only the 5th worst rated mecha anime of all time. 9th if you count Super Mazinger Z and various other Korean bootlegs, which is pretty damn good for Idea Factory, but perhaps not that great for funny video making purposes. Like, yeah, there's still animation and continuity errors all over the place. The models can't emote for shit. Neither director can make an action scene to save his life. The love triangle that they decide the story's about 4 episodes before it's over makes the finale of Ald Noah Zero look like f***ing Shakespeare. Most of the emotional scenes feel like they were written by aliens with borderline personality disorder. The reason the two sides are even having a morally gray space war in the first place doesn't make any sense, and it takes the show 3 attempts to cook up a prologue that actually explains it properly at all. So until like episode 9, me and my buddy, who very kindly sat through this with me, had no idea that it was about 2 different companies fighting.
It's so much more fun to watch this kind of shit with someone, yeah. Alone you might get bored real quick because there's not much to do in between the really bad funny scene. You just have the boring scene.
Over contracts to eject nuclear waste into space, which are somehow worth enough money to make them both more powerful than most governments. Though it also probably doesn't help on that front that the fan subs are utter dog shit that call the giant robots RVs for more than half the series runtime until someone finally double checked and realized they're supposed to be RBs. Also, this probably goes without saying, but Sato and Kato's attempts at the obligatory mecha philosophizing are beyond laughable. After switching sides in the space war, Protag-kun has this whole revelation where he's like, I thought you guys were all demons, but it was all in my head. Maybe all men have demons in them. And then they actually made a 3D model of fucking Baphomet to just jump scare him in mirrors.
This is kind of great. Okay.
Only
I know writers who use subtext, and they're all cowards.
There's a couple more moments that are pretty funny like that in isolation, like various characters saying, Jesus has abandoned us, in this whole assassination scene where they ran out of time and money to animate the crowd around the guy getting shot.
This face.
For the most part, though, it's just excruciatingly boring. The blandest, most boilerplate.
It just seems like there's probably like one or two quick scenes that are actually really funny per episode, but the rest is
real
just...
robot story you can think of, told by guys who can barely direct a 30-second cutscene. Almost nothing in it is worth watching, even ironically, and even less is worth talking about. But I do still think it makes the best possible note to end this story on, in part because that numbing mediocrity represents the clear high point of Sato's entire filmography, but mostly because its existence explains the rest of it. The reason that Sato's OVAs just kept getting uglier and worse with each installment is because he and his Not an Anime studio took a massive multi-million-dollar bet on a franchise whose hopes and dreams were mainly pinned on the Dreamcast and WonderSwan, and even more damningly on him and his buddy's ability to take charge of a bleeding-edge, first-of-its-kind work of art. Honestly, after a failure like that, you kind of just gotta respect the guts it takes to pick yourself back up and scrape together a shitty Pokemon knockoff plus 8 minutes of video game prologue from whatever you could find in your couch cushions.
Sure.
I wish he hadn't, but I deeply respect that he did. And that kind of sums up my feelings on Yoshiteru Sato and Idea Factory's entire history. Making anime and video games, even legendarily bad ones, is unfathomably difficult. Most people simply aren't cut out for it. And to keep going in the face of overwhelming evidence that you are definitely one of those people, more so than maybe anyone else who...
But do you think he knew? Like, that's the thing, right? Like, do you think the guy actually thought he was bad?
ever tried? That takes something special. That is the idea difference. I'm Jeff Thu, professional garbage appreciator, and Sato Sensei, I salute you.
Okay, that was a bit of a long-winded video, I won't lie. I like some video from Mother's Basement, but it definitely kind of stretched this a little bit. I was really hoping that there would be maybe interviews with the guy that he would touch on or something. You know, I mean, as always, you know, I'm just a reactor, so I shouldn't criticize people's video, but I'll do it anyway. That's just what I do. I just feel like it didn't have to recap some of this so much. Like, just showing the bad part would have been interesting enough. There was no need for the recaps. And again, I just want to know what the guy was thinking. Like, again, is there any interview with the director? There has to be. Did he actually think his work was shit? What was the condition the work were made in? Like, did they literally have like $5 to make them? Like, I'm interested. I'm genuinely interested. So, while this was interesting, I feel like it's missing a lot of behind the scenes stuff, you know. But okay, well, we'll leave it at this video for today. I think, yeah, I've had enough for today. But yeah, tomorrow we're doing more Japan learning. Come watch if you want. Check out the videos by Mother's Basement. Link in the description as always. Like, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Next time, ExoticBankai. See you.